Good morning. It's 11:44 a.m. on Thursday, September 11th, 2025. And this meeting of the Sandpoint Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee is now called to order in council chambers at City Hall, 1123 West Lake Street, Sandpoint, Idaho. For the record, I'm Committee Vice Chair Molly O'Reilly presiding. Also present are committee members Aaron Billing, Bradley Peterson, Julie Paczynski, Sally Lakemer. Absent are Chair Kate Huseman, Katie Stapleton, Jennifer Heller, and Reed Weber. In addition to our committee, our staff liaison, Associate Planner Eric Brubaker, our Deputy Clerk, City Clerk Haley Keys, Holly Ellis, and Eric Bush. Also, city staff are with us today. Haley Keys is serving as our clerk. First, I need to announce that our agenda was amended yesterday with the removal of the item pertaining to the Ella Cottages project. The item for review of amendments to the sidewalk and lieu fee program was also removed a few days ago. Additionally, yesterday, the agenda was reordered with old and new business combined to ensure we get to some pressing issues toward the top of our meeting. Because at least one of these amendments was made and posted less than 48 hours prior to the meeting, per Idaho code, the amended agenda cannot become effective until we vote to accept it. At this time, I will entertain a motion to accept the amendments and proceed with the amended agenda. Is there a motion? Aaron moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Julie seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The motion passes unanimously and the amended agenda is approved. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our August 14th, 2025. Although I have a question before we vote. Is there a motion to approve? Thanks, Julie.
Second.
Aaron, second from Aaron. Jennifer Heller raised that Bradley is also a member of the Development Review Committee, subcommittee. And he's nodding yes. So we probably need an amendment to add him to the previous minutes as a member of that subcommittee.
It's just taking over for me. Is he gonna?
Well,
Yeah, step in.
Now we already have three, so.
I'm on two committees now anyways. Yeah,
talk louder. You need to be
I'm on
recorded.
two committees right now. I guess I was on three.
Okay, I think the minutes only showed you on, not sure. But you looked, right? At last month's minutes to see what committees you showed up on.
What's your last name, Bradley?
Peterson.
Peterson, Mr. Peterson. MMTMP.
MMTNP. Yeah, I was on the development committee, but I can step down from that. Yeah, I was on two.
May I have Bradley move over here? The camera's not picking up audio very well.
All right, we need to, not 3 or 4. That's a point.
I think we only have.
Yes, now that we're 9 people, we can have 4, which is nice when it works. But if you're gonna feel overwhelmed, then we don't want you, but people, when you,
I actually enjoyed the development subcommittee meetings. I'll stay.
so, Aaron, will you move to amend your motion to add Bradley to the development subcommittee?
To add Bradley Peterson, right? Subcommittee.
Okay,
Second.
and Julie seconded. So All who vote to approve the amendment, say aye, please. Unanimous. And so now moved the amended motion. All approve, say aye. So, okay, so our minutes are approved with one amendment. Haley, was that good enough? The amended agenda, the amended motion is approved. Okay, the minutes. Next, we'll move on to old business, beginning with a quick discussion on committee and staff review work.
Thank you, Molly. Eric Brubaker, staff liaison, and this in here, and I think all of us in staff may have a little bit of input to chime in, and want to get it kicked off though. One of the things that's happening, basically there are three things happening concurrently that will affect this committee and other subcommittees of the city. This one a little more because you have a new staff liaison. That's me. And so I'm going to be looking for ways to try to make it work for me and the city. At the same time, mayor and council have been having discussions about subcommittees in general and making sure that there's consistency and that people's time is being used effectively. And we don't know exactly how that's all gonna look yet, but you will see us trying some things on. And it may impact the way that the meeting is structured and that it runs. But big thing that my part that I observed when I got the subcommittee meeting minutes back, particularly the development subcommittee, and this is a piece of what this committee does that is squarely in the planning department, right? So the development review, and it appears that like 2 or 3 of the projects that were being discussed and talked about were either past any appropriate time for comment, they're administrative projects that really, for example, all house condo plat. Condo plat is platting of a project that already exists. So there's nothing for us to put input on because condo plat is existing structures. It happens to be subsequent to an earlier site plan review, which would have been the time to get comments in on that project. But that's just one example of things that, okay, these guys probably spent a half hour talking about this thing. And I'm like, this is a real bummer. And you saw we changed the agenda, and recently we changed it again because we are trying to get consistency and tease out the difference between our different land use applications. Unlike most subcommittees of the city, Bike Ped is explicitly asked to comment on subdivisions. So you'll see we have O'Connell Estates today. We'll talk about that later on, but that is one where this is a great opportunity for Bike Ped to chime in, be effective, and get some information, bring it to the table. So that's kind of an example. I want to know, I want it to be interactive. Are there questions about that or suggestions from the committee? This is a discussion.
Yeah. So what you're saying basically is it was too late to do all the commenting that we did at the last meeting. Things had already been sewn up and there was no option of being heard. So we're wasting our time with those kind of projects as they come to us from.
The way it was operating,
I see.
that's true.
Okay,
The way it needs to operate, that is not true. So that's
Okay.
why timing is
Okay.
on the agenda. So
gotcha.
we're gonna try and bring projects when it comes to land use applications at the right time.
Okay,
O'Connell Estates just came in, it's the right time. So we'll be talking about that. There are projects that do not really get weighed in by the subcommittee, but you all are passionate. We're gonna learn from every project. you want to know what's going on with the city. You are conveyors to other people in the community. So I'll be giving reports and let you know what's going on. So like Ella Cottages, for example, falls into that class. So I'll kind of report about that briefly, but it's one of those things that we're trying to tighten our ship as a department moving forward, and I'll speak to that. I think I'll let Holly speak to how this impacts public projects.
Yeah, Holly, Public Works Director. Excited to get a little more engaged with you today and going forward. We have a lot of capital projects that we work on, and with the committees being relatively new and with a new staff liaison, Eric and I were talking, and it makes a lot of sense to engage PedBike earlier on in the discussion. That's why, for example, a perfect example is today, the 4th Avenue sidewalk. We amended your agenda, and I appreciate you all being open to seeing this project early. Getting your feedback at a conceptual 30% level. That way, when you have comments, we can incorporate them, and it's not going to disrupt change orders or redesign. And that also empowers you to give us appropriate comments, the comments that we can actually take and bring into fruition. Comments that we'd want to avoid would be on a final design, that's an engineering comment. And if we bring you final plan sets, kind of are putting you in a position where you're almost forced, but you would be maybe to make design changes, perhaps that's a change order, and increases the price of the project. Or maybe it's not an appropriate comment for a non-engineer to make. So by bringing these projects to you early, we can get your feedback and hopefully successfully incorporate that feedback without any of you acting like an engineer and minimizing design changes. So that'll be perhaps a different workflow than how Brandon was bringing stuff to you previously, but I think it's going to a lot of success. So 4th Avenue is just one example of us coming to you earlier than we would have.
Did Brandon pass on to you our previous comments on 4th?
We found them. Yes, you did a site walk. You didn't have a plan set to look at. So we've got our first round of a plan set from what I understand. I don't know that he had plans for you, but we've got plans.
No, but we made recommendations for where things should happen and how they should happen. Did those get to you?
They got to us much slower than I wished they had. And so that's going to be one process.
And that was really good. That was before the 30%. That was where should we be looking at it on 4th? And we were pretty unanimous. It should be closer to Pine, which isn't reflected here. But it would be lovely. You will get things in the future. It would be lovely to be included at that, and this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Going forward.
Great. Then sounds
We
very
recognized an
constructive.
improvement. That was one of them.
Yeah, good. Well, and Eric, one of the problems the Development Review Committee has experienced is we don't get any notification when something goes up that we should look at. So particularly Jen has been really good about looking city's website for things that look like they ought to be looked at, and we've gone from there. But maybe coordinating with you would save trying to figure it out.
Absolutely. I mean, I take it as my responsibility to bring it to the committee at the right time. But what I also hear you saying is maybe you want,
Can we like subscribe to that? to get
you want like
notifications?
push notifications of everything that's happening. I don't know a mechanism that we can do that, and I think we can assess on that and
Sure.
socialize it a little bit, see if we can make something to help empower the committee with information.
There probably are contractors, other people Sandpoint, who would love push notifications when something goes up on their site. If we're coordinating with you, we don't need that. Yeah, push for various meetings, so maybe that's something IT could think.
I'm just thinking maybe she could write the list and then say, Eric, these are all ones we should discuss in our subcommittee meeting, and then he could have weeded out, maybe. She's getting the. From.
She's manually going in there and looking at it.
Right, but he's saying
This
they
isn't-
discussed.
This is another thing, like, so we're not gonna be doing special something for bike pad and not all the subcommittees, right?
Mhm.
Right, so if there's something that the city needs to work on, you know, we can look at that, but we're gonna try to minimize all this customization, because it's another thing that came up in the conversations with city leadership was staff time, keeping it clean. Things like even having city council person, if we're presenting a project that may ultimately go before her, is that gonna be a problem, or do we do those at the end of the meeting? So we're gonna be working through some things together.
Sounds good. So,
And I would just add to that, Eric in his position and planning, I think that he's gonna be the right fit to know exactly. He knows all the projects that come through the door and he'll know the right times to bring these to you. So I'm. It'll be a new process, it'll be a new flow, but I think there'll be improvement there just by the.
it sounds way better. It sounds way more productive, and maybe or subcommittees can meet. Somebody from it could ask you, what is there anything we need to look at and what? And you
Right.
could just answer and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah.
And that'll save us a bunch of time and
Yeah.
you,
I was somewhat mortified to see how much you guys probably put into some of those things. So definitely we will tighten that up.
does that sound like a good starting
Yeah,
process?
it does.
And
Does.
we can always change it. Figure. Yet. Okay, thank you. Great.
I think that's all we have on that. Haley, did you have anything?
It looks like Deb Rule is able to join us now. Thank you, Deb. Nice to see you. Okay. What else? This all seems very important and very constructive, and thank you.
So I think it's perfect that Deb just walked in where we closed the door on your flow discussion. So you have a line, me, Holly, or I may be the conveyor back and forth sometimes. But city council is going to have directives and special projects or initiatives that are important to the city. And that's where Deb comes in, is that third leg of the stool. So
I'll rewatch the section.
you can rewatch,
meeting,
you can
so I'm plugged in, okay?
rewatch it. But do you have anything to say? I know you're just walking in the door, but we're just talking about trying to tighten up how we operate in terms of committee to committee to committee within the city, and making sure that we're getting that balance right between organic initiatives that are coming out of the subcommittees and the mayor and council are wanting to see.
Out the context of what you guys already said, probably not.
Right,
I
I mean-
did speak on the dais the other evening. Did have a very short, brief conversation with both Jason and Bill, just about planning pieces and how I think as Bill is now starting to be ready. I think it's really imperative that I think some of the things we're trying to manage in here should just be in the code, which sort of extracts us from that, because because sometimes planning and projects happen too quickly or need to move forward and they can't wait on this committee to meet once a month. or it's just, it's inefficient. Maybe they could wait. So, that's really the
Yeah.
only thing I think I have to say about that, but I think extremely excited because Bill is very, very capable. And so I think as he moves forward with that, if we can engage in that level, writing to making sure that we feel like needs ends up there, so we're not constantly trying to.
And that ties into a conversation Bill and I had. One, we're gonna try and bring him to the next meeting and we're gonna talk all about land use. And there are a lot of things where we may not be able to comment on, but we can learn from and apply to future when it comes time to look at our subdivision ordinances and our zoning code and that stuff. So that's gonna be an opportunity for this committee to have input as well. I think that's all we have on that.
Sounds like staff is, council are preparing to use this committee very constructive. Any comments?
Appreciate it.
Okay, next we'll have a brief discussion on the open house date.
All right, so I'm gonna take the lead on that because I'm actually interested in asking the committee to perhaps reconsider pushing an open house. And the reason is, I think there is a body of information out there, such as the division audit, all of Aaron's work from Safe Routes to School, and all the historic information that Molly brought last time. And the longer I'm here in this role and at the city, finding that there's a gold mine of information out there that I think this is the perfect body to dig in and get all the good nuggets out before we go to the library and we get 10 new comments. Yes, we need to have that. It's in fact in your charter. It's part of what you're supposed to do, but we want that information gathering to be effective, and we want it to generally be pointing towards something. In this case, we're pointing towards spending some in lieu fee dollars. And Molly has talked about prioritization system. I think that fits in with it. So you guys can talk me down, but I wanted to maybe go around the table with that.
Idea.
My question is with the in lieu, I don't know what the deadlines are for that money to be spent, you read about it, you have 10 years to spend that money. Are there certain areas that are closer to a deadline? I mean, that's what Brandon kept bringing up, is the deadline
Holly, I think.
for that money.
We do have deadlines. The in lieu fee is an earlier fee, and Deb might be able to help me. Did it pass in 22 or maybe in 2020?
Oh, so
I
it's a
think we're
newer
3
part,
to
okay.
5 years.
Okay, he made it sound like, next year it could go away.
We don't have monies expiring.
So
Yeah, okay, so we are,
Different than in the loop.
So the in lieu fees are, they were, say recently, within the past 2 to 5 years,
Okay,
adopted by
okay,
council.
so
They do expire
Right.
every 10. We do, to speak to Brandon's urgency on the matter, we don't have a best tracking system in place. We have it in our finance department, but nobody has spent the time to dive into a process on how we track this allocation. And we also haven't done a deep dive in our priorities that would set how we would spend that money. So I would be curious to know, what criteria, what scoring criteria, what matrix should we look at when the city is looking to use these in lieu fees? That way, when we are looking to use this money, we can objectively look and make a data-driven decision on how to appropriately spend it. Should we be targeting a certain amount? Maybe we want the pot to grow so high before we utilize it. Really dive into maybe a process of not just where we'd want the money to be spent, how we'd want it to be spent, but also some matrix scoring criteria around it. And I think that might have been what Brandon was projecting with this urgency, like we need to figure out how to spend this money, and then we can consistently.
That sounds like a really solid basis, Holly. And this committee is actually working forward on things that should help with that a lot. Not some of the things that the MTMP committee is working on, I think will really inform that. Hopefully be back here next month with a lot of discussion, and I think we'll get a whole lot closer. Good. Thank you. Yeah. Other comments? But also knowing kind of, what's people in different parts of the city think, what, as they're walking or kids are, what are they grumbling about? But that's not all bad, but could be a springtime thing. Any other comments?
If you, if an open house is something that you are wanting, if you, don't think that we have enough to mine through, as Eric was uses language, perhaps consider like a listening session. Maybe that's what it's titled. One concern I have is I wouldn't want to, we've had a lot of open houses in the past and a lot of opportunity for comment. I don't want the community to get frustrated that I've voiced the same comment every single open house I've gone to. I think that's the only. It's just, I think outreach is great and continual often. Maybe formatting it as.
Thank you. We aren't in a position to do anything but listen, so that's a great way to phrase it. All right. Anything else on this topic? All righty. Next, city staff is requesting a recommendation on phase 2 of the Division Avenue Corridor Improvements Project. Now I yield the floor to Public Works Director Holly Ellis.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and share my screen. I understand that at the last meeting, and I did watch the last meeting, that Brandon Stagland presented these plans to you. So Brandon Stagland was our city engineer. He's no longer with the city. He was also the design engineer for these projects. So I'd like to, if you want me to give you a project overview, I'd be happy to start there, or if you wanted to dive into your comments. Let me do that for you. In a second, I'll share my screen. Vision Avenue Corridor Improvement Project. This is the second phase of a multi-phase project on Division Avenue. This plan is in our multimodal transportation plan. It's in our long-term plan. The purpose of that project is to provide a road diet on Division Avenue and also improve the corridor for multiple users. So we're specifically, the whole project looks from Division from Highway 2 all the way to Baldy. This particular phase, it's just picking up on the east side of the project. So on the south end near Highway 2, we did a project last summer, maybe the summer before, two summers ago. And we got 2 blocks of sidewalk installed. It provided a lateral shift, so the traffic lanes on Division Avenue narrowed, and we were able to rebuild the sidewalk there so that it was no longer curbside. The value in that is to provide a buffer area It's a more comfortable place for pedestrians to walk and the sidewalk's not right on the curb. It also provides an opportunity for snow storage and tree plantings. So we successfully completed 2 blocks. This phase 2 project picks up right where that previous project left off and is getting 2 blocks north to Pine Street. So on my screen here, again, we're on Division Avenue. We're on that east side. This is Superior, Michigan.
Sounds right.
I'm
Which one is
guessing
it?
it's Michigan.
Michigan to Superior was done. Superior to Pine.
Superior.
So this is
And then the
Superior.
parking lot upstairs. So if you're to describe the plans you're looking at, if you see this hatched marked here, like the little triangles, that's indicating concrete. This darker hatching here is indicating asphalt replacement. So these plans envision perpendicular curb ramps at this, and we're plan north is over here. So on the right side of your screen is the north arrow. So we're going to move from south to north along the project. This plan envisions perpendicular ramps on the southeast corner. So this here where my cursor is, if you can see, crosses Division Street to an ADA ramp that's intended to be improved. This is a parallel style ADA ramp. This is a perpendicular style ADA ramp. New sidewalk to another perpendicular ramp, which crosses Superior. The new sidewalk would be curbside for just this intersection, jog back to the property line. There's 2 driveways that would be replaced with this project because they'd be impacted. So the new sidewalk would continue along this property line. There's an existing utility pole here. And the sidewalk you can see narrows to jog around it. Avista has very large power poles in this corridor. They will underground, but it's a very expensive project and it's probably 10 years out. So this sidewalk jog, we'd consider it temporary. In the future, Avista is going to underground on the other side of the west side. So our goal is we'll continue to improve the east side, and when they do underground in the next 10 years, we'll pop out these panels and replace them.
And
Vista's covering that.
how narrow will it get at that jog?
It can get no more narrow than 4 feet for PROAG requirements.
Right, okay.
And PROAG is very similar to ADA.
Yeah, it's the implementation of it. And could we go back to that intersection and what's the curb radius there?
I don't have the curb radius number for you, but I could figure it out.
It looks really wide.
It looks like it's matching the existing radius. Our curb radiuses are all determined by the Urban Area Transportation Plan. It's called the UATP. That is the city standard for curb radiuses. The other way that's our standing document. So when this road was designed, it was signed in accordance with that plan that we had. We as a city recognize that there's a lot of value in narrowing curb radiuses. So in order to do so, we look at what traffic's on the road, what the appropriate design vehicle is, and redesign. In this case, and Brandon's not here as the engineer to answer this question, but it appears to me he matched the existing curb radius and did not do an engineering assessment on changing that radius based on the curb, on the design vehicle and the road use. It was a replacement factor.
What's your design pedestrian there? Your design pedestrian. What are you going for safety for? Is it a middle schooler at Superior?
All pedestrians are same in our design, so we actually don't target a type of pedestrian. It's just an accessible all users. Did you see that standard, the city standard?
Speak up, Sally.
UATP, the Urban Area So this is a sidewalk project, not a road reconstruction project. Looking at the design vehicles, doing design counts was not an effort that Brandon did. And he did not look to reduce any of the radiuses from a traffic engineering perspective. His design was limited to sidewalk.
Can I ask when this is slated to be constructed? Because in the council meeting on February 19th, it said summer last. No, so we lose funding. So
Yeah, our goal is to get this done before the snow flies this fall. So we want to get this out to bid. I'd like to hear everyone's comments and feedback. And I'd like to make sure we address all those comments, and that will certainly inform what our next steps might be. That's really heavily used for the kids. This is a child pedestrian safety grant that we got for this project. So we do know a lot of our users are going to be children going to school. Heading just to the north, we've got our second intersection. This one is very similar. So you can see the sidewalks along the property line. So we have snow storage here between the sidewalk and the back of curb. The sidewalk, we call it jogs or diverts to the curb. And notice that there's a crosswalk.
And why does it jog to the curb? It's gonna be so covered with burned snow in the winter that it'll be a month after the snow is gone before it's usable.
The property line is, so of course, the curb ramp has to meet the curb because that's the location of the cross. So it's inevitable that our sidewalk has to go to the curb.
But just
So that it
at
can
the
cross.
ramp. I mean,
Yes,
we
and then,
have tended to go down.
yeah, so I wanted to make sure we understood that. This portion here, the reason that this is going curbside is because of the property line. So this is private property right here. So from a geometric perspective, it had to the north so that we could have a ramp that's all within the public right of way. If we hadn't relocated the sidewalk, it would have had to go on private. It was a right of way construction. And it can't go. Correct. Due to the ramp. Yeah. Yeah, it does look like there's a pole there as well. This is the lake.
Not right there. There's no street. It's a driveway.
that's like the bowling alley.
Yeah.
Across from right.
So is that the VA is on the corner of Pine?
Yeah.
We've got one more.
Yeah, okay. So, and it's the ramp that's causing the walkway to be pulled further onto Lake Street, is that correct? Because of how the ramp has to be built spec wise, and because of the pole being there and.
Why is your question why this crosswalk is so far south? Thinking plan south, but in reality. Partially, for the most part, that's because of this radius on the roadway. So here's your radius here of your turn of the road of your turn. The crosswalk is always at the termination of.
The 12-foot radii that we have pretty much throughout town. Curb ramp be really close to the corners so that pedestrians are visible. It's a real safety advantage. And we don't really want people turning off Pine fast onto Lake, right? So why would we accommodate anything other than a slow turn there? It's going to take out a kid.
Well. That was a leap there, but I'll say we can absolutely, I mean, our city standard is the UATP. That is, so everybody's clear and everyone knows when we design roads, we're designing to the urban area transportation plan. that's a pretty old plan. It's not the most, I think it's from '09.
2000.
We've, as a country, as a society, we have a lot more progressive standards out there. There's a lot of progressive guiding documents out there. These are Sandpoint city standards, so it, but that is absolutely something that we could consider is developing standards that are more in line with what we want to see as a community, as a pedestrian town. This is
Away
what-
From those standards for this project, bound by the standards. Code is it, it's not codified.
But, following everything I do is per our standards.
Yeah,
So we do follow our standards. There's many reasons to. follow city standards. So we can
Could you-
relook at city
Could you
standards.
invoke NACTO standards and do something a little different? This is kids. Right, they're walking to and from school.
So this is a good conversation. I'm glad, I mean,
Thank you
I
for
feel like
coming.
we've had a lot of discussion on this project, but for your comments, I mean, and how we comment, this is a great conversation. So your concerns, a great comment for you to make would be, we're concerned about safety. Please have your engineer look at this turn radius. Don't feel like you need to be in a position to dictate the curb radius, present the concern, and let staff check in with our engineer, and we'll have them assess the scenario to make sure that this is safe. So I think that would be a really great way for you to provide your comments. Don't feel like you need to provide the solution, identify what the issues are, and then we'll carry them forward. So to your question about how we follow standards, we have the urban area transportation plan. This intersection is in total and complete alignment with that plan. There are many occasions where we diverted from our standards, but it's always supported by some type of engineering judgment and decision. So if your recommendation is to look at these intersections from a safety standpoint, we can get an engineering effort in place to assess what a better, safer radius might be.
Bradley, you were gonna speak?
There's some pent up frustration. I think Brandon gate kept a lot of stuff. We did tell the engineer what we thought. He was the engineer. Did this anyways. I guess it's how I feel and how a lot of people feel. You guys witnessed it, like, you guys probably a whole bunch of stuff that we didn't share beyond this meeting. I'm very hopeful that it changes going forward.
So I want to make sure we're not frustrated. I want to empower you to make comments that we as staff can incorporate into our designs. So
Well, we don't have this as an action item.
I wasn't expecting to
Yeah.
present so much on it. So
Okay,
sorry, I don't have all the details for you. I was
sure.
If you're thinking I'd do
Still something that can be, it's still a point that it can be affected. Send comments to say we have a safety concern and it's still possible that make it changes made.
I'd like to say what your comments are. We do have a challenge. I'll be completely transparent. Brandon Staglin was our design engineer. He's no longer with the city. So depending on how significant your comments are, how real they are, how appropriate they are, we may or may not be able to incorporate them. My hope is yes. Ultimately, the next step with this project is to get your comments, provide you a response to all of your comments. This goes to council and then it gets constructed.
And for this particular one, I'm looking at it, the dark gray and the area is, those are the constructions, but there's the curbing is also being modified.
Yes, so this whole sidewalk here, the limits of construction are really from here, the property line to into the road. So a new sidewalk.
Bike lane as well.
The bike lane will be a replacement. It's sort of already
Okay,
there.
but that's the parameters that are being, the boundaries of the work. Okay. Well,
So
that would seem like
sidewalk, planter strip, curb and gutter, And then this is asphalt patching so that you can get the new curb and gutter in place.
Holly, my comment would be, for question or, what are the curb rates in the Michigan division? Are they going to be the same as this, the ones that we just rebuilt with that sidewalk next to the church? I think there's a functional use being out in the environment perspective, which is sometimes different than drawing on paper. Makes sense.
I'm sure they're similar. I don't have those
You
numbers
don't have any
offhand.
of that stuff.
I know so I worked,
We need to keep moving.
Yeah.
are there, I guess,
Thank you for the feedback on how you.
Um,
You'd like to.
move us north
Be
if you
productive,
would.
yeah, thank you.
Mark,
You'd like to.
I've written out something that we can work from as a comment. So do we, how much further does this project go north or
I,
just
not
one?
much fun more than that.
Both sides of.
Have a plot, yeah.
Okay.
I can figure out how to use my. Yes.
Let me, I scroll if I can and it's just a suggestion.
Mhm.
Someone's got to make a suggestion. That committee supports sidewalks on division being set back from the curb. At intersections, we ask to evaluate all elements, maximize safety of children walking and biking. Managing vehicular turning speeds seems important.
And I think you should say something about the crosswalk. Well, I don't know, of course, that's telling them what to do, but closer to the corner.
That would be part of that evaluation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Need the second.
No, yeah, okay, so,
I'll second.
yeah. The committee supports sidewalks set back from the curb, east side of division. At intersections, we ask for evaluation of all elements to maximize safety of children walking and biking. Minimizing vehicular turning speeds seems important.
Okay, I second
there-
that.
Yeah, great. Is there any more discussion? All in favor? Unanimous, so we don't have to go for. Thanks for doing some time. Okay, thank you, Holly. Nicely done. Next, city staff is requesting a review of the 4th Avenue sidewalk project, and I'll again yield the floor to Holly.
Give us just one sec. And we do have your comments from the July meeting. And we've reviewed those and some of the comments that were made at that meeting, fortunately are already accounted for in this plan set, which is pretty, particularly the connection via Pacific to Third Avenue and ultimately the Third Avenue pier. We're still working out some of the details of that, but that was kind of a high priority to make that connection. Of course, Third Avenue itself is a little bit, there's only 5 or 6 houses on it, so it's not super heavily trafficked, but nonetheless, we're going to be able to get sidewalk on the west side of Third Avenue, all the way down to the pier, which I'm pretty excited about. We're also going to get sidewalk on the south side of Pacific, so making that connection for 4, which is a pretty big win. I was over there a number of times throughout the summer, and it's incredible how many people use that pier at all hours of the day. 7:30, 8 in the morning and all the way you know, probably through sunset when I'm not at work anymore. But that was a high priority, you know, when we kind of started this project.
Um,
Go ahead, Holly.
no, just a quick introduction. Thanks to everyone for letting us amend your agenda to add this. And as we discussed earlier, we'd like to bring projects to you earlier. Again, that way we're getting your feedback early, a concept for 30%, minimizing any design changes, and also not putting you in a position where you might be operating or acting as an engineer. So I think this is a good alignment. So for that, Eric got plans just last week from his engineer. So we thought this was a good time to bring it to the committee in the spirit of doing things early, not wanting to wait a month. Thanks for letting us get on your agenda, and Eric can go ahead and take from here. If you
Yeah,
want
can I just see your screen a little so I can see what street we're at here?
Sandstone coming in.
Anton, okay. So coming in, and part of what you'll see reflected, in this plan set is primarily the sidewalk improvements are on the east side of Fourth. And there are crossing connections at streets and crossings where we can fit them currently. And where we can fit them currently is partially determined by the presence in 2 or 3 cases along Fourth of power poles being directly across from an intersection or directly across from where we would want a pedestrian ramp. Some of those we may be able to relocate the poles. Sometimes working with the Vista, the poles are easy to pick up and move. Other times, particularly if there's a transformer on the poles, they're really expensive. So they may not be an option in some of those, but there are some intersections you'll notice that don't have them. And that's part of the reason. There is one right in front of us here, where Antone kind of comes in. So there was a connection made on the north side, right where the cursor is there. We can just fit that in, right next to the opposite side of the street's driveway, apron. On the south side of the street, there's currently a pole right in the way, with a guy wire that, comes down on either side, and that's one we're gonna ask about. But as it stands currently, it's not an appropriate space to put, seating ramp. But we'll find out. Well, I'm gonna meet with the Vista and find out. Yeah.
So where ProA, thank you for bringing up ProA, says that every intersection you put in programs going both ways unless all pedestrians are forbidden to cross there. So it wasn't clear to me that on South Fourth, at every intersection, we had the ability for people to cross both directions using curb ramps. At Anton, is that the case there? So you've got it up. Here. Yeah. So Anton kind of odd. Street. Yeah. So T intersection, we should have at least one crossing, right? Whichever side is feasible and has less traffic, maybe. Not a driveway for.
That's one right there.
Yes, it
Yes,
is.
that's one right there. No.
Okay, so it's going both ways. That's great.
On the
Okay,
northwest.
yeah, good.
And let me just step back for a second too. Generally with these sidewalk projects, when we do them, these are funded and yearly by the resort city tax that Holly was describing earlier in the meeting. And we don't have a tremendous amount of funding that comes from these projects. And realistically, it's when I'm looking at these projects, it's hard to not fix everything. And you know, as you all know, we have lack of sidewalks or poor condition sidewalks all throughout town. In an ideal world, if we had millions of dollars, we could come in and fix them all. But we don't. And these projects are kind of an exercise in, utilizing our funding intelligently and trying to improve things, as best we can, given the limited funding we have. So in an ideal world, we would fix everything and fix it to, the highest standards. And in many cases in these, we have to make some of these decisions, and it's, how far can we get?
We do have some in lieu fees. So the intersections can be done right. And I don't know that it's law, but finally the access board said, this is what ADA means at intersections. And it said you have curb ramps going both ways in intersection. At an X intersection, you definitely need that. T, it seems like a curb ramp on one side that meets one on the other side, it's probably adequate. And if it's a chicane, as it's Superior and Fourth, for safety, you'd be on the outside of that chicane both times so that people aren't caught trying to cross as cars are going zip, zip, zip. And also ideally, you'd put in the metal truncated domes, because you probably don't have a repair fund for when they get too worn down to be detectable. I don't think we can legally not put in.
We've got a curb ramp in this drawing right
Yeah, but yes, that's great. Move on. I didn't see them at all, intersections going both.
I think this is it's a good comment. Make sure that we take at all the intersections and look at every crossing. And just to highlight Eric's point, I always call it scrappy. As staff, we're very scrappy with the dollars we have. We do our best to stretch them as far as we can. And this is a great opportunity where you all can help us balance those dollars and make those decisions appropriately. So we do have, I think, Eric, we'll go page by page. I'll let you describe where the crossings are, where the sidewalk is. So for clarity, this is 4th Avenue at Anton. We have one crossing on the north side. On the south side, there's not one proposed at this time due to a challenge with a power pole and a guy wire. Well, if it's a comment, well, as staff, we're looking at that anyway to see if Vista can move it. But a great comment for you all to highlight for us.
So we're at here.
Yes.
So, we have, sidewalk kind of infill in a couple locations. And the kind of dash lines, or excuse me, not dash lines, angular lines that are, right where Holly's cursor is right now. That's where sidewalk doesn't exist currently. So that's just kind of the indicator on the plan set that, that's an infill where we're making a connection that it doesn't exist currently. On this set, and as you all know, 4th Avenue in this stretch is a bit of a odd block, because we've got half block intersections, with the streets kind of being offset. So, and it's a bit of a unique street compared to many of the other ones throughout town, which kind of complicates some of the things. So we're again here as we are at Michigan, thank you. On the north side of Michigan, we have a receiving ramp to the east side of 4th Avenue. We also have one on the south side in this location. And as we move a little bit further north to the right of your page, we do not currently have a receiving ramp there. And in this location, it's a bit of a grade issue. It's something we're gonna look at a little bit closer and hope we can do it, but it may not be possible without expending, somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000 to regrade and remove and replace a significant amount of sidewalk to comply with the slope requirements. But we're looking at it and we'll see what is possible. So you can go to the next page, Holly.
just generally, Eric, if there's challenges in the design. It's not easy to put new sidewalk into existing infrastructure.
It is not.
Very challenging to retrofit,
Very challenging.
challenge with tough decisions.
Yes, absolutely.
This street.
So this is Dearborn on the left-hand side of your page and Superior on the right-hand side of your page. Moving further north. We are the kind of left half of this block, the south half of this block doesn't have any existing sidewalks, so we're constructing that. And I'm grateful we were able to, make this work in this location. The houses on the bottom of the page there, the east side of Fourth Avenue, have a pretty steep slope that enters much of their houses, and I was a little concerned looking at this that it was not really gonna work in that context without creating some, slope issues on private property, which we like to avoid where we can. But thankfully, we can make it work. Unfortunately, we have to pass the first residence there. We have to go kind of curbside, but that also matches, what's existing further north. So it does kind of, just match what is there currently. As we get, to Superior, the opposite side of the street does not currently have a receiving ramp. Again, that's one that we're looking at. If I recall correctly, there's a tree directly in that path right now. And I'm, the city forester as well as my role as a project manager. So I'm keeping those things in mind as we do projects like this. But where Superior connects west is about 60 feet north of there, and we have east-west crossings in both of those locations. So we'll see as we move forward what is possible in that location.
So Eric, my comment would be, when people come up out of Superior, because I use that intersection all the time, tendency to.
They're
always
going 30
ringing my
miles.
bell, whether it's a car or
Yeah.
not on my bike. I think we all know it's super busy. At times, when there's a football game or festival, everybody's gonna be going left. Other times, when it's just time for all the kids to get to high school, then they all do the chicane to get through there really fast. So there's not a safer side necessarily to make a cross happen there.
Yeah.
And you're probably already aware of it. but
And I share that concern. Holly and I were talking about that yesterday, and, not that I don't want to have a crossing on either or both sides of Superior here, but I've got real concerns about pedestrian conflicts with vehicles, and those never work out well for the pedestrian. So we're looking at it, but we want to be smart and make sure we do it properly, because we don't want to be putting folks at risk either.
And,
I have a
go
question.
back to, well, let me finish that.
Sally has to leave.
Okay.
Does that, if we lose a quorum, do we have to end or can we continue? I'm sorry to interrupt. Yeah, it's okay. It is what it is. We were here.
So fourth is an action item, but timing wise, is it something that can take comment next month?
We're coming too early, so we've got time. We're not up on the deadline.
And that's true of O'Connell as well.
So we can push everything if we need to next month, because we won't have a quorum, so we'll need to adjourn.
She was on time. We don't blame her for needing to leave on time.
Can you still discuss the items that aren't action?
No, we won't have a quorum.
You can't discuss them.
No, we just need to adjourn.
Okay.
Okay, with the loss of our quorum at 12:49 PM. Sure.